Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear volunteers, colleagues, friends, and well-wishers, good evening. I'm Amin Gulamani, and on behalf of Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio of the Council for Pakistan, I welcome you all to this session on Spark of Hope. This session, which is being coordinated between 3 continents, will be conducted by Azim Jamal from Canada and moderated by Salim Devji from South Africa. Salim is an entrepreneur in the technology space. He is passionate about growth of himself and of others. He creates and advises on company boards in Africa and Middle East. He is also an active member of the HPS Africa Advisory Board. I now request Salim to formally start the session. Salim.
Thank you, Amin. Good evening to everyone. Let me start with a quick story. When I was 14 years old, living in Kinshasa in the Congo, my father was a Camario. My mom was president of the Youth and Sports Council. And at the dinner table, there was a conversation that there was not going to be a variety show for July that year. This is where we go and have a lot of fun. The students have a lot of fun. So I said, I was the president of the student council. I said, why don't we, the students, organize it? And they let us organize it. And we had a great time. I share this story because it was the first time in my life that I understood what it was to give. I understood what it was to do something for the Jamaat. Initially, it started, we, the students, want to have fun. As we got into the program, as we started doing more and more things, we realized that we were doing this for the Jamaat. And so because of that, I understood that volunteers have a very, very special place in our community. You need to be a volunteer to understand the community. Any kind of volunteer, whether it's with a badge, without a badge, title, or no badge. And for that reason, I am particularly honored to be the moderator this evening. On behalf of the Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio of the Ismaili Council for Pakistan, welcome to this evening's program called Spark for Hope. This portfolio was specifically created to develop the capacities of volunteers across Pakistan so that volunteers can perform their responsibilities in an effective and in an efficient manner. As we begin this session, we wanted to express our immense gratitude to all the volunteers all across Pakistan. You are the reason that we are so successful as a community. We appreciate all your efforts. Tonight's program has been created especially for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to give you some context for tonight. We're going to be speaking about how you create spark for hope. In this challenging time, the whole world has changed. This feels like a once-in-a-generation event. And in these times, we can see what is strong, what is not. What matters, what does not matter. We ourselves are changing as our priorities are starting to shift. Some of us may have lost our spark, our hope, or just the tools to strengthen ourselves. But you are volunteers. You are our strength. You are our foundation. In the next hour together, we're going to talk about how to ignite that spark of hope in your life by finding balance and by being goal-driven. The format that we will have today is shortly, I will introduce our esteemed speaker, Azim Jamal. I will interview him with a few questions. I will invite him to share the concept of spark, that framework that could be so helpful. We will then encourage those listening to post questions. Please post as many questions as you can. We love for this to be an interaction between both of us, all of us here, and then I will close with some remarks. With that, let's begin. It is now my absolute pleasure to introduce a great friend, Azim Jamal. Azim is an internationally sought after inspirational speaker and leadership coach. Born in Tanzania, educated in Kenya, the UK, and Canada. He is the founder of Corporate Sufi Worldwide. It is a company that inspires and empowers leaders to achieve material success, blended with a deep sense of purpose, balance, and happiness. He acquired 3 professional accounting qualifications before switching from accounting for business to accounting for life. And this happened after a life-changing experience volunteering with refugees. Azim's inspiring message has been heard live by over 1 million people in 100 cities in 5 continents. Through his books and media messages, he has reached over 5 million people. He lives in Vancouver, Canada, but his heart is global. You are no stranger to the Pakistan Jamaat. Azim, welcome to a conversation with our amazing volunteers and guests this evening. Azim.
Thank you, Salim. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Azim, let us start with a few questions. There was an article in Forbes magazine last year titled "The Business Case for Hope." It said in that article, hopeful salespeople reach their quotas more often, and hopeful managers have a higher rate of meeting their quarterly goals. This, to me, means that hope can be measured. Azim, what is your definition of hope, and how do we know hope actually exists?
So the way I define hope, Salim, is in 3 ways. The first one is that you have to have a desire, hopefully a burning desire, a fire in your belly to achieve something. So that's part 1. Part 2 is you're going to put some effort, focus, and perseverance to achieve it. It's not going to happen by you sitting back. And third, you have the faith in yourself, faith in your community, faith in your family, and faith in God. With those 3 components, to me, that's how I define hope, because there's a desire, there's effort, and there's faith. And the second question you asked is, how do you know how do you know hope works? I think by doing these 3 things, you will experience 2 things. You will experience achieving your aspiration, or if you don't achieve your aspirations, you will grow as a person because you are desiring, you're putting effort, and you have faith. And ultimately, it's not just what you do, it's who you are. That also is an important factor in your growth and in your spark and in your hope.
Thank you, Azim. During this period of uncertainty, and I don't even have to talk about the crazy challenges that we are all going through. During this period of uncertainty, some find it hard to be ignited, hard to find that sense of energy. How does one actually find their spark?
Great question, Salim. I think this is a very deep question in terms of, you see, people rely on outside factors to create their spark. You know, when things are better outside, my spark is there, or I'm more energetic. But if you take charge and make your spark to be inside you, which means 80 to 90% of your spark comes from within, not from outside, then no matter what happens, whether it's COVID, whether it's pandemic, whether it's economic crisis, whether it's whatever, your spark is still internal. Now, how do you get there? So the first thing you have to realize, and this is very profound, that life is not about you. Life is bigger than you. You see, when you make your life, and that's what volunteers do, it's about making impact on others. So when you take your life to be a person of service, a servant leader, and you want to make a difference to other people in your life, then it doesn't become about you. So your goal is to keep making service and doing service. So that's one part. The second part is you have to know, how do you define yourself? Who are you as a person? And what you want to be as a person. So if you have noble, as Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, in his memoirs says, Al Khan III says, that life is a great and noble calling, not a mean and groveling thing to be shuffled through as best as you can, but a lofty and exalted destiny. So when you create life as a noble calling and a lofty and exalted destiny, you have the spark within, and then you navigate everything around you with that energy. Yeah, that twinkle in your eye, your brows are unwrinkled, you have a smile in your face, there's an echo in your voice. There's the words of Og Mandino, one of my favorite authors.
Thank you. I'm reminded about the story that I just shared as a 14-year-old boy. I decided to try and engage in something, but I was selfish. I was thinking for us, the students. And as I went through that process, you're now telling me that my spark came there because I realized it was for the greater good. It was for the Jamaat. Thank you. Thank you for that. You've connected with millions of people around the world, sharing your insights, sharing your knowledge, sharing your thought process. You coach and you advise Fortune 500 CEOs and other leaders globally, including in Pakistan. Volunteers are also leaders. What are the biggest challenges and concerns experienced by leaders today?
Great question again, Salim. I think if you look at the pandemic, what it has done is it's made many people become so cooked in by being locked out, right? So being at home whole day, not having a place to vent out. So there's a challenge, and they become more focused on themselves and forget about the leadership that they have to do for others around them. So the challenge has been the balance between inside out, looking after yourself, which is not always selfish, because sometimes by looking after yourself, you can look after others. It's an inside out approach. It becomes selfless, because if you don't have the energy, you can't give energy to others. But how do you balance that with making sure that you impact others around you? So that's one challenge they're facing. The second challenge they're facing is, with the pandemic crisis, the cash flow, the business has been bad. So how do they lay off people who have been so loyal to them for so many years, and now they have to tell them, I don't have a job for you. So those two things have been very, very difficult for people. However, those leaders who have that spark within are able to navigate that. How? First of all, to make sure that they find a place to be able to energize themselves on a daily basis, not once a month, not once a year. Every day they find some space to meditate, to have quiet time, to rejuvenate, so they're able to give out. And secondly, when they have to take some difficult decisions of laying people off, they're able to communicate effectively by having the empathy and sharing and being transparent about the challenges and making people realize that we're all together in this and we will get out together from this. And yes, there will be a temporary issue, but this communication helps people to realize that the leadership is transparent, right?
Thank you. I want to push you a little bit more on that first point you made. So what you're saying is that it is okay for me to take care of myself first before I take care of everybody else. Is that the message you're giving us?
Yes, because you see, if your cup is empty, there's nothing to give. So when I talk about the hour of power, 20 minutes meditation, 20 minutes exercise, 20 minutes read something uplifting every morning, that 1 hour you invest in the morning, that significantly enhances the next 23 hours because you're more dynamic, because you've done something for your body, something for your soul, and something for your mind, then the 23 hours are significantly enhanced. So if you look after yourself, you can look after others. It's an inside out approach. So volunteers should not forget that looking after yourself is selfless, because that allows you to serve better.
Thank you. There's one or two questions that are starting to come in. Please continue posting the questions. I will get to as many as I can. Please continue posting them and we will get to them. My next question for you, Maulana Haji Imam places a huge importance on the quality of life, especially this during his Diamond Jubilee. In the context of the pandemic, what has changed?
So, I mean, you're right that the quality of life was a very important priority in the Diamond Jubilee for our community. And quality of life, as you know, is just quite broad in terms of encompasses income, it encompasses housing, health, education, social integration, dignity. So yeah, with the pandemic, I mean, if you look at the reports the World Bank has come up with, they're saying more than between 40 to 60 million people will be making less than $1.90 per day, more than what they already are, because we have about 730 million people who are already making less than $2 a day. So that will happen. World Bank is also saying hundreds of millions of people will lose jobs. So with all this, and look at what's happening in the US and other places. So with all this crisis, there's going to be a ripple effect affecting the quality of life of many, many people around the world. So how do we now cope with it? The plus side I see, Salim, if you look at what has happened in the pandemic, first of all, you realize that we've got many more volunteers coming forward to help, because more people need help. So a lot of people have come forward to help, which means there are a bigger pool of people helping others, which is fantastic. Secondly, you see the programming and online has enhanced so much. programming by the education board, health board, economic planning board. So you see that upliftment. You also see a seamless way of the institutions working together, which is also very important, right? And while we're talking today, there are people from US, people from Canada, people from Africa are listening to us. So we become like one big community in a way, right? So I think the pluses are that to counter the shortfall, right?
Got it.
And there'll be more need for volunteers to step forward in this pandemic because there'll be more people looking for help and they will need hand holding, right?
Fantastic. So it sounds like during this difficult time, more and more people are coming out to help, which is obviously a fantastic positive, helping different communities and institutions grow. And the knowledge share has become very, very powerful. And I'm really resonating with that. Thank you, Azim. Is there a way we can create spark in others, especially in children? A large part of our listeners, I believe, are parents, are going to be parents. And, the world has changed. So how do we put spark in others, and including children?
So if you start with children, I was very fortunate to be with my parents for almost 50 years. We stayed together. And my mom and dad were great role models. They never told me I should serve people, but I watched them serve people all my life. So I did not learn from what they told me. I learned from what I saw. So with words, you can only preach. With action, you teach. So if you want to inspire somebody, be their role model. Let people learn from what they see, not what you tell them. So I think that's very, very important with children. With others, I think the issue is that if you're working as a leader in the volunteer organization and you're helping your team have that spark and be inspired, I think it's important to build that rapport, to build that trust, to understand the team, to understand people's richness. Everybody has different richness, right? I mean, if you look at soccer, for example, football, a striker like Lionel Messi can score goals, but he can't be a defender, he can't be a goalkeeper, right? So using people's strengths, how to be able to ignite that spark in people by using their strengths is also a way to inspire people, right? Because now you're making them shine where they are really cut out to shine, because that's what their skill sets are, right? And their passion is.
Thank you. So being a role model is becoming more critical today than ever. Thank you. So I spoke about how you create spark in others, and you've given a few examples of that. You speak to so many people. I'm sure you get this question from time to time. Where do you get your own spark from? Where does Azim Jamal's spark come from?
So that's a difficult question, but two things. I'll bring Karachi into factor, because in 1997, right, it was about 22 years ago, I was there for focus as an accountant with 3 degrees to do budgeting for Afghan refugees. And I was so shaken by what I saw that when I took a ride from the hut I visited to Marriott Hotel in Karachi, which most people are familiar, and that 25 minutes ride, I sobbed like a baby. I cried like a baby. My soul was shaken. I had a sleepless night. In the sleepless night, I went through this question: how do you help people who have nothing, right? They've come from Afghanistan to Karachi. They're working 14 hours a day. They're making $1 a day. And, this is where I decided to change my career from accounting for business to accounting for life. And yes, I struggled in my new career for many years, but today I'm 100 times better at what I do than I was an accountant. So I went to change people's life. Guess what happened? In the process, I changed my own life. So that's the paradox of giving, right? So the spark comes from creating spark in others, and so that's one part of it. And then, of course, realizing after many years, I was doing a talk for the biggest company in the world on automotive and marine company. And in my keynote, halfway, a lady put up her hand and asked me a question out of the blue. And she asked me, Azim, how do you define success for you? And because I was in a different kind of topic or different kind of thing, I had to pause for 20 seconds or 30 seconds before I could respond. And I told her, if today is what, August 9th, right? August 9th, Salim, 2020. If today, by the time I go to sleep, if today is the best day of my life, And if I can say, going to sleep, today was my best day in my life, for my health, for my family, for my spirituality, for my lifelong learning, for my finance, for my work, that's success. I don't care about yesterday. I don't care about tomorrow. Today is the day. So this is where I think my spark comes from, because I live in tight compartments. Today is the day, and in this talk I have to give 110%. Whatever I have, I have to give it. And if I do it, I'll walk away from this talk and saying, "Thank you, Alhamdulillah. I was able to give what I have."
Fantastic. I'm going to just start taking one or two questions because they resonate to what you've just started saying. Amina is asking, people today are running after worldly life and they don't get satisfaction. Is there a tip to enhance their internal satisfaction?
So one of the biggest challenges we have is what we call ego, right? So material things are possessions, possessions, possessions. You come empty-handed, you die empty-handed. So we come naked and we die naked. So material possessions are important for quality of life, to go to have a good life for your family, to have good education. But if that's the only thing that's driving you, the internal satisfaction will be very difficult, right? So now ego is something that you cannot totally overcome, because we're human beings, we'll have it. But the more you're aware of your ego, the more you're able to kind of subside it, right? So I think the internal satisfaction comes from realizing that you have a purpose, you make a contribution to others, and volunteers do that. And the more you're driven by that, the best way to get happiness. I wrote a book on happiness about 20 years ago. It's my first book, 7 Steps to Lasting Happiness. And it took me 10,000 hours to write the book. But if you ask me to summarize the whole book in one line, the line would be, the best way to get happiness is to give happiness. So happiness is like a shadow. The more you follow it, the more it eludes you. The more you walk away from it and give it to others, it follows you. So if you want internal satisfaction, give satisfaction to others, and you'll find that it'll be a byproduct you'll get. I think it's Emerson who said it's one of life's most wonderful compensation. It is one of life's most wonderful compensation, that no man can help another without helping himself or herself.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I would like to invite you now to share your Spark framework. If we can just get that loaded up. And I just wanted to tell the listeners, we're going to be sharing 5 different ideas. And really the take-home value for your engagement today is pick 1, pick 2 that you can really focus and develop in your lives. If you can take all of them, fantastic. So Azim, please take us through your framework, and let's start with the first one, S for service.
So I think for service, I will use an example. One day I was doing a talk for an organization called Young Presidents Organization, which Salim you're very familiar with, which is a worldwide organization. And I was doing a talk in Hyderabad in India. And every time I do a talk, usually my talk for the YPO is Synergy of Business, Balance, and Beyond. But in my talk, I always talk about giving. It's part of who I am. So after my talk, this guy comes to me and asks me a question. He says, Azim, he says, can I share a story with you? I said, sure. He said one day he had collected a lot of money because he was the president of a round table club. And his job was to give this very phenomenal check, a big check, to Mother Teresa at that time when she was alive. So she took this check. He was a big, tall guy. He took this check and gave it to Mother Teresa, who was a petite young lady. And she looked at that check, and it was quite a huge amount. And of course, she was very happy, and she prayed for him. And then she paused. She went on her toes, put her hand on his shoulder, looked him in his eye, and said to him, but never forget to thank the people who allow you to serve them. So he was confused. He says, I've raised this money. I spent so much time. My team has spent so much time. I've sacrificed so much of my own income. And now I'm giving the money. And she's saying to me, I should thank the people I'm giving the money to. He said, I was confused. But then he told me, over the years, I've come to realize, what she meant. And today, again, you mentioned that those people who haven't tasted the beauty and the bounty and the joy and the power of giving don't know what they're missing. So my point, Salim, is no receiver, no giver. So part of the issue about service is, one is no receiver, no giver. You don't have to be rich to give. Rather, you become richer when you give. Giving is not about handout. It's about hand up. How do you make people become masters of their destiny? is what Hazrat Imam kind of give us guidance on, right? It's all about not keeping a score about giving. The universe is already keeping scores. You do your stuff, the universe keeps scores. You don't have to say, I did this for you, so you should do this for me. It's already taken care of. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, happiness comes from giving. And the paradox of giving is the more you give, the more you receive. If you have closed fist, you can't receive. And lastly, don't say, what will I lose by giving? You know what you say? What will I lose by not giving? I will lose my skills, my interpersonal skills, my leadership skills, my knowledge, my barakah, my abundance.
You're kind of alluding to this point, but we have our amazing volunteers on the line. And I know for a fact, before COVID, before this pandemic, they were giving 100%. That's what it means to be a volunteer. They were giving 100%. Now we have this challenge. Now the world has become even more difficult. I've given 100%. Where do I find the strength to give more, Azim? Where? Where does the volunteer find that strength?
So I two parts. Again, coming back to what I said earlier, it's inside out. Look after yourself. Do not deplete yourself. So look after your health, your mind, your spirituality. So once you look after yourself, you have now got some energy back. Okay, that's part one. Part two is realize no matter how hard you're working, no matter how smart you're working, no matter how clever you are, you're still scratching your potential. We have so much innate potential. You know, we are nature's greatest miracles. Okay, so, and the way to tap into your genius is to give. So the more you're giving, the more you're tapping into your genius. So as long as you're balancing it out with your own personal growth and internal requirements, you're able to, the more you're able to give more, the more you're able to tap more. It's amazing. And that's where the win-win comes. So, you know, the more you give, the more you create. The more you give, the more you innovate. The more you give, the more you find. The more you give, the more you receive. You know, a cow which stops giving milk cannot create more milk. A tree which has a fruit and nobody takes it, it falls down and rots. A river which stops flowing stagnates. So when you stop giving, you stop actually creating. So it is really by doing more, you attract more.
Thank you. Let's now talk about purpose.
So purpose is, you know, the question why. You know, people might say, I'm too old to do things or circumstances or whatever. Let me share a story with you. And most of you might be familiar with it. There's a fellow by the name of Tom Moore in UK. He was having his 100th birthday on April 30th this year. 100th birthday, 100 years old, okay? 1 month before his birthday, he decides he wants to raise some money for the National Health Services in UK. So he decides to walk around his house, and there's a little garden. And he said, I'll walk 100 times with my walker and I'll ask my family to donate some money. And my goal was to raise £1,000. Before his 100th birthday, you know how much money he raised? He raised about £32 million. He created a song with somebody else called You'll Never Walk Alone. That song became #1 on UK charts at the age of 100. Never in the history of the UK charts, a person with 100 years old has got a #1 record. The Queen sent him a birthday card. You know how many birthday cards he got for the 100 years old? 125,000. Tell him you and me in our whole lifetime will never get that many cards. So what's my point? It's never too late, okay, to have a purpose. So some points about purpose. You have to have a deeper why. Anything you do, you ask yourself, what is my deeper why? Rumi, the Sufi poet, says, you can do hundreds of things in life. You can do hundreds of things in life, but if you don't do this one thing, you wasted your life. What is this one thing you must do before you die? Okay? Again, the issue about purpose is not what you do, it's who you are. You know, we are human beings, not human doings. Sometimes we become human doings. But who are you? And when you're dying, you know, when Steve Jobs died, his sister reported after he died that before he died, he looked at his family around him, his sister, his wife, his kids, and his 3 words were, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. The guy who was born when his parents gave away to him to other parents, he had cancer, he was fired from Apple, he went through all that, but he created a phenomenal company. Now, that was his wow. I'm not saying what his wow should be your wow, but do you know your wow? What would you like to say at your deathbed? And that's where purpose starts. You start with an end in mind, and the end of all ends is your death. And you work backwards and say, am I leaving today in alignment with my death? Okay? And you might say, oh, I'm too young to worry about that. Guess what? Kobe Bryant, the best basketball player in the world, at the age of 41, died before even the COVID. So if the best basketball player cannot control his life, how are we going to control our life? So there is no tomorrow, right, that we should worry about, right? So be the best version of yourself. And as I mentioned, Aga Khan III said, life is a great and noble calling, not a mean and groveling thing to be shuffled through as best as you can, but a lofty and exalted destiny, and that comes from purpose.
So let me ask a question further on purpose. A few people who read books, and I can see from the comments here, you're getting compliments about some of your books. So you have a fan base. If you define your purpose, is it okay to change it? How often should you change it?
It's a good question, Salim. I mean, purpose is like principles, right? Principles don't change usually, right? Because they are the ground on which you stand. Now, it's possible as you're younger, you're trying to define your purpose, you're not sure, and you might tweak it. But once you define it and you know this is what your life is all about, then it becomes the anchor. So principles and purpose are the anchor, right? Are the ground which you stand. They remain constant. Like, for example, like pandemic. Are you going to change your principles in pandemic? You might change your strategies. You might change the way you do things, but you won't change your principles. So purpose is like that. It's like the mission, the purpose why you exist. Now, I understand. It's not easy to know your purpose. They don't teach you that in school. I tell people, when you are born, Allah gave you a birthday gift. God gave you a birthday gift. Most people never open their birthday gift because they don't know what the birthday gift is. It took me 43 years to open my birthday gift when I went to Karachi as an accountant, and I saw what I saw, and I changed my career and found my birthday gift, and I was born to do what I'm doing now. But it took me 43 years. So yeah, before 43 years, I was going in circles. So yes, if you're not quite there, then you can change. But once you have defined it and you're sure that's what it is, then you live around it. You don't compromise it.
Let's talk about aspire.
So as you aspire, the universe conspires, right? As you aspire, the universe conspires. I went to Kabul, Afghanistan, after the war. When America bombarded Kabul, two volunteers went to Kabul, one with soldiers, one with volunteers. I was in the chopper with the volunteers. One chopper fell down, everybody died. Luckily for us volunteers, we did not die, but unfortunately for the soldiers, they all died. So as I enter Kabul, this is after my experience in Karachi, where I decided to help people like the Afghan refugees. So as I'm walking in Kabul, I see hospitals destroyed. I see schools destroyed. I see houses destroyed. I see young kids begging on the street. Kids who had lost their parents in the war now by themselves are begging on the street. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. As I'm walking on the street, I'm feeling a bit down and almost depressed. As I'm walking, I passed by a rug shop, a carpet shop. And I looked inside the carpet shop and I saw a rug on the wall. And on the rug, there was a quote, not in Farsi, but in English. One of the most powerful quotes I've seen. It read, obstacles are what you see when you take your eye off your goal. Wow. It was like God talking to me, saying, Azim, what are you complaining? You have a goal. If your goal is uplifting, if your goal is inspiring, if your goal is energizing, you don't see obstacles. So he says, why are you looking at the obstacles? You're here to help. Stick to helping and do something good. Don't worry about the obstacles. So the way to get a spark, the spark of hope, is to create inspiring, uplifting, energizing goals. And this is the time to do it, because that gives you the energy when everything else is going around you, which is not very, very big, very good, right? So we talked about hope. You know what Azim Jamal says about hope? He said in the Brown University commencement speech, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, the right to hope is one of the biggest motivation I know of. The right to hope. So we all have a right to hope, but hope not as a passive thing, As I mentioned, hope with a desire, with effort, and with faith. So I think those, and also with aspire, have a larger ambition. Again, Agagan III, he said in his memoirs, um, let the subject disappear in the object. Life in the ultimate analysis has taught me one enduring lesson, that the subject must disappear in the object. The subject is the ego. The object is the goal. When the goal is larger than self, you're unstoppable. And that's what Aspire is about.
So, we are going through challenging times in the world. Is survival a goal?
So yeah, if you are hand to mouth, you have no food. As I said, there are almost, by the way, almost 10% of the world, close to 10% of the world, 1 in 10 people are making less than $2 a day. So if you are in a survival mode, you don't have food for tonight or a shelter to sleep, that will be one of your goals, to be able to overcome your immediate basic needs. And that's why it's so important for people to have quality of life, so they can aspire for bigger ambitions. However, you have to dare to dream. You have to dare to dream. Once you start dreaming, and by the way, goal setting is such, you have to have this dream, set your goals, look at your goals every morning, every night. I'll share a story with you. There was a fellow, I won't name him, in Africa. I met him many years ago. I was having dinner with him. At dinner time, I told him, how important it is to have this vision, this aspiration. He got so excited, he took the napkin from dinner and wrote his goals down on the napkin. And I told him, you got to look at your goals every morning, every night, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. He started doing that. I met him after 2-3 years, and the guy from like a small business has expanded his business Africa-wide, amazing success. And he read his goals every morning, every afternoon, every night. And then I met him 2-3 years later. He said, Azim, I'm very sad. I said, what happened? He said, I lost my wallet. I said, oh my God, you lost all your cards and money? He said, no, I don't care about that. I lost my napkin, because he had put his napkin in his wallet. So I told him, you know why you lost your napkin? He said, no. I said, because you've achieved your goals. Now set a new napkin. You've been there and done more than that. But that's the power. So if you are in survival and you want to set a goal to survive for one day, it's understandable, but don't stop there. Don't stop there. Dare to dream, because Rumi says what you seek is also seeking you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's talk about results. I know results from a community that's always looking to measure ourselves. We know results are important. Talk to us about results, please.
So results has 2 components: attitudes, positive attitudes, and positive habits. So let's start with positive attitudes, right? What does it mean to have a positive attitude? Share a quick story. I went to Tajikistan to work with a company there, an energy company, Pamir Energy. At that time, okay, now it's much better roads, but that time the road from from Dushanbe to Korog was 19 hours going up, and coming back was 14 hours. So in my coming back trip, I had this Tajik driver. We was driving back to Dushanbe, and on the way there was a 12-year-old lady, 12-year-old, selling apples in a small bucket, small kind of basket. So he slowed his car down because he wanted to buy some apples. But for some unknown reason, he didn't stop there. He went another 50 yards and he stopped there. Started buying apple from this big trolley from a bigger apple seller. This young girl, 12 years old, walked 50 yards with her basket and came there and looked at this driver, smiling, basically saying to him, you were stopping there. Now why are you stopping here? My apples are as good as this guy's. But she didn't say a word. She was just looking at him, smiling. And I'm looking at the spectacle. I didn't have any Tajik money on me. So he's buying those apples from the trolley. But before we left there, he bought all the girls' apples too. Why do you think he bought the apples? Because he realized that this girl, 12-year-old, is supporting her family, has the guts to fight with this big apple seller and believe in her apples. The attitude. If a 12-year-old girl in Tajikistan can have this attitude, we all can have attitude. Michael Jordan once said, he said, in my career, I lost more than 300 games. I had a match-winning time 26 times. I couldn't get the match-winning shot. He said, I probably made almost 9,000 shots in my life. I failed and failed and failed, and that's why I succeeded. So attitude means you never give up. You persevere, you persist till you succeed. You persist till you succeed, and you keep on persisting till you succeed. You see, in the pandemic, rather than becoming paranoid, become an inverse paranoid. You believe, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. The more challenges I get, I'm going to do it. Prophets went through challenges. The great business people went through challenges. Sports people went through challenges. In Pakistan, the cricketers went through challenges. But you don't give up. And that's the attitude you need to have. So that's one part. And that's got you results. Good attitude brings results. Habits, on the other hand, you see, if I ask you, Salim, right now, are you breathing? Are you breathing? How do you know you're breathing?
I just know. I don't ask.
How? The only reason you know you're breathing is because you're alive. Right?
Correct.
Because you're alive, right? Now, if a habit becomes as natural as breathing, that's called mastery. So you drill and you drill and you drill until it becomes as natural as breathing. So good habits, once formed, are very difficult to break. And same thing with bad habits. When you have bad habits, they're also difficult to break. So form good habits. You see, sometimes you have to say no for a deeper yes. But do you know your deeper yes? So saying no is a good habit, but not say no to important things. Say no to things that are not important. By saying no to things that are not important, you can say yes to things that are important. That's a good habit, right? Daily rituals. One day I was in South Africa, in Johannesburg, Salim. We were doing an event at this Galahad Stadium. We had 4,000 people come. Brian Tracy and me were the speakers. So on that day, Brian Tracy had to go for swimming somewhere because the pool in the hotel was very cold. So while he went for swimming in another hotel, I was free. So I was walking in the Maslow Hotel in Johannesburg, and guess I came to a workshop room and I saw a blackboard and I saw a quote there. It said, "Your daily rituals determine your future success." Wow. Your daily rituals determine your future success. What are your daily rituals in the pandemic? What do you do when you get up in the morning? Look at your rituals and you will know your future success. So form these good habits that creates great success. So both these positive habits and positive attitudes brings you results. Results is a byproduct.
So I really appreciate when you're explaining the concept of habits and the concept of attitude. Often it's the concept is understood, but the how is difficult. And so you say develop rituals, but how? Where is there a framework? Is there something you can suggest? Because you can say do this, do this, do this, but the how is sometimes not clear. Please share with us one or two ideas, please, on that.
So I'll give one example of how. I met Jack Canfield. Most of you know him. He wrote this book, The Chicken Soup for the Soul. They sold more than 100 million copies. And he's given me a forward in my book, Power of Giving, and he's endorsed several of my books, and he's mentioned me in his book. So one day I met him, and I asked him, Jack, how do you sell hundreds of millions of books? Books he didn't even write. People shared stories with you, and you made the book, and you sold so many copies. He said, Azim, Mark Victor Hansen, his co-author, and him had so many ideas to make this book a success. Hundreds of ideas. They had flip charts everywhere. They were overwhelmed. They said, how are you going to make all these ideas come to reality? But they decided every single day we will do 5 things. Phone this guy, attend this function, do this, whatever it is, 5 small things or big things, doesn't matter. Even if the 5 things takes us half an hour, but we must do 5 things every day. Guess what? By doing just that, they sold more than 100 million copies of their books. And when they were rejected by so many publishers when they started off. So a habit is, in Swahili, in Africa, in Tanzania, we say, haba na haba, ujaza kibaba. Drop by drop, you make the bucket. Right? So every day put a drop, put something every day to create some kind of momentum, to create that ritual. So the how is, you can't chew the whole apple in one bite, but you can take small bites every day, right? Or small bites at a time to finish the apple. So those kind of habits you need to form. First, have a goal. Okay, read your goals often, have a roadmap, and then take action one by one.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about knowledge, one of my favorite topics.
So knowledge, again, has 2 components, balance and life, okay? And as you know, knowledge, Iqra Bismillah, was the first words revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace of God be upon him. So knowledge is such powerful in our faith, right, basically. But if you look at the idea of balance, for example, See, there are a few points about balance, okay? Less is more. Less of important is better than more of unimportant. Slow is fast. Slowing down to build relationship is better than speeding up. Okay, building rapport, building trust takes time. So slow down to speed up. Okay, small is big. Success is in big things. Happiness is in small things. Share an example with you. One day I was reading an article from Harvard about this guy who was invited to go to White House. But he was torn. The day he was invited to go to White House, his son had a final basketball game, a cup final. His son had never been in the cup final. So he was torn. Do I go to White House or do I go to my son's basketball game? And the problem was he had never been invited to the White House and his son had never had the cup final before. So he said, why do I have to choose? Why can't I go to both? But he had to choose and he chose to go to his son's game. It so happened in the last second, his son got the winner. And they won the championship and his son was carried on the, and he was so happy he went to the basketball game. So when I read this article, I was so inspired. Now, it so happened when I read that article, my son had a soccer game, not a cup final, just a league game. And I couldn't go and watch it because I had to pick up my wife. And when you have to pick up your wife, you don't mess around, right? So the only way I could go to my son's game, I could go there for 5 minutes and then rush to pick up my wife. So normally I wouldn't go for 5 minutes. But because I read this article, I got so inspired, I rushed to my son's game. I reached there, I ran to the ground, and luckily I reached there just before the kickoff. So I shouted at my son, his name is Tawfiq. I said, Tawfiq, Dad's here. So he gives me a thumbs up. And then I said to him after a few seconds, Tawfiq, I'm only here for 5 minutes. I have to pick up Mom. So he gives me a thumbs up. And then I couldn't resist. Before he started his kickoff, right before he started, I said, Tawfiq, if you're going to score a goal, score in 5 minutes. So he gives me a thumbs up. The game starts. Nothing is happening. The ball is going here. The ball is going there. It's almost 5 minutes. So I'm walking away to the car because I have to pick up my wife. As I'm walking away, I'm looking back at the ground. And just before I'm getting to my car, he scores a 30-yard shot and scores a goal. So, and that day I wrote a blog and I write a blog, daily blog, where I said, you set a goal and score a goal. Now, not a big deal. It was not a cup final. The game was not even finished. They could still lose the game. But for me, a big deal. You know why? Because I took the effort to go to see my son's game. So it's a small thing, but big happiness for me. So with family, you got to create memorable moments. It's like creates moments in your life that take your breath away. So for me, that moment was the time when I took my breath away. And that brings balance into your life. It's a juggling act. But if you become a master at less is more, small is big, and slow is fast, you can get there.
Thank you. Thank you, Azim, for this simple and effective framework. They are powerful to keep our sanity in check, to lead a balanced life, and certainly providing us with hope in the world of today. And I understand that you intend to incorporate this model into your next book that you're writing. So it's so wonderful that you're sharing this concept with us in advance before it gets into your book. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
I want to go now to the Q&As with the audience. So to the audience, please post as many questions as you may have, and I will start running through them. So let me try and go in the order. So Rizwan is complimenting you on this session. Thank you, Rizwan. His question is, in this world, we concentrate more on the quantity of time and compromise on the quality of time. What can we do to have quality time to achieve satisfaction? Maybe 1 minute or so per question would be great.
Yeah, so I think define what quality means for you. So if you have your goals, crystal clear goals, okay, and you look at your goals every morning, every afternoon, every night, then you align your life around those goals. So you become focused on that, right? So you're not scattered with so many things because you're going in circles, right? So to get quality, define what quality means for you, and quality has to align with your crystal clear goals. And the goals have to align with your purpose, right?
Thank you. Hanif is asking, what needs to be changed at institutional level to have better results where physical meetings are limited? What needs to be done to avoid communication barrier? And I think this is becoming a bigger question, even outside the community, In some cases, even in your business, you now need to, we have a different communication platform like what we're doing right now. What can we do to be more effective?
So in terms of meetings, you have to ask the question when you are invited for a meeting, what's the purpose of the meeting and what do you want me to contribute? If people cannot give you the purpose of the meeting and what you have to contribute, the meeting is not valuable, right? Basically, because they're telling you we don't even know our purpose and we don't know what you need to contribute. Secondly, if you have a team, sometimes you have to send your assistant to the meeting because you are also empowering them, grooming them, and it also saves you time, so to speak. So I think sometimes you have to have a meeting standing up. You stand up and have your meeting, and everybody has 2 minutes to talk with a clear, crystal clear goal. You'll find meetings very sharp, very effective, and the meetings are quicker, faster, and you're done with, right? So because there are 20 people, it's 20 man hours. You got to make sure the 20 hours are important and be transparent. Transparency creates breakthrough. The more transparent you are, the more you're able to take away all that bureaucracy and all that unnecessary things, right?
Thank you. Rizwan is thanking you for the Mother Teresa example. He liked it. My question is, how can I keep myself motivated during this pandemic? And this is a question a lot of people are asking.
Set inspiring, uplifting, energizing, motivating goals. Create a burning desire, a fire in your belly, what you want. You don't have it, but you want it. And because you want it so badly, you'll wake up in the morning early. Sometimes I wake up at 1 a.m. because I'm so driven by what I want to do that I can't sleep, right? So if you create a desire, then you're excited about life and you get motivated because you want something. Yeah, you want a better life for yourself, for your family. And by the way, many people have become rich in crisis. Some people have made the most money when times are difficult. So don't, what we were guided by, is that be strong in the crisis and build and prepare to build well so you are ready for when the crisis passes, right?
Thank you for that. I have a question from Merunisa. As we know that our youth are going through a very challenging time, what is your advice to build spark among them?
So no different from elders, setting a goal for yourself. You're young, right? I mean, I did very poorly when I was a youth. I failed all my exams in school. I was really poor in science. I was only good in sports, in cricket, in soccer, but I didn't have those academic skills. But then I did accounting. I changed from science to accounting. I did quite good. I got the best result in the history of college in London. But then I changed to become a speaker and leadership coach. So, you might have to take 3 degrees, 2 degrees, but find that calling, that passion that you have, and that will create excitement for you. And again, set goals. What do you want? If dare to dream. If you were told that you can achieve anything you dare to dream and nothing will stop you to be successful, what will you dare to do? Start with that, because you have the capacity. There's no shortage of capacity. There's shortage of goals. There's shortage of aspiration. That's the shortage, not the capacity.
Fantastic. We're not going to have time to answer all the questions, so I will just take the last one. Lots of compliments for you, so it's difficult for me to go and find all the questions because there's so many compliments for you, Azim. You have lots of fans there. Last question from Faisal. Please suggest how a person can identify one's own strengths and true interests.
So I think writing a journal every day can be very powerful, right? You write a journal and say, how was my day today? Sometimes you stumble into your calling, you stumble into your spark. And I stumbled into my spark when I worked with the refugees in Karachi in a small hut. There were 14 of them. I heard some horror stories, and then when I walked out of the hut, the whole village was standing outside, and I as a coward walked away in my cab. But in the cab, I was sobbing, right? I stumbled into something that really hit my soul. So write a journal to see what's happening in your life and what really excites you, what makes you so passionate, what makes you happy. And as you do that, you find something that ticks on you, that excites you. And once you have that spark, do not, this is the most powerful, I'm saying that's the last thing, Salim, do not let a day pass by fueling your spark. Since I got this spark on 24th October, 1997, which was my son's 3rd birthday, 22 years ago, I haven't let a day pass by without fueling my spark. So if you do that, you're going to be unstoppable. Nothing will stop you. The spark will be with you every single step of your way, and you will have hope.
Thank you, Azim. Any final words or closing thoughts before I share closing comments?
So I think really, basically, right now, what's the time now, Salim? In Vancouver, it's 8:59 a.m. 1 minute to go for our call. 8:59 a.m. on August 9th, 2020 will never come back. But this is the moment. Make every moment count. Don't count the moments, but make every moment count. If you make every moment count with doing something positive, that's where you get your hope, and that's where you get your spark, and that's where you get your balance, and that's where you get your goals.
Thank you, Azim. Now, just for my closing thoughts, so I can try and bring everything together. We cannot see hope, but we can feel it. It is sometimes difficult to explain, but we know when hope is there. Hope is small, but hope is powerful. It is mighty. And with it, we learn, we evolve, and we succeed to move us, our families, our teams, our Jamaat, and our humanity forward. The Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio of the Ismaili Council for Pakistan would like to appreciate the contribution of all the volunteers who perform their duties with enthusiasm, zeal, commitment, and devotion. You are our heroes. The Pakistan Jamaat has responded well to the COVID situation, and collectively, we see hope of opportunities coming ahead to us. This is a time when we should work together and especially help those in need. But even as Pakistan's lockdown is easing up, I understand that tomorrow there's an ease up of lockdown. The situation seems to have improved, but the reality is that the threat has not gone away and it can come back. So please, please, please remember to practice social distancing, wear your masks, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay strong. We will be fine, inshallah. Let's bounce back together, stronger than before. Ignite your spark. One Jamaat. Thank you, everyone. Good night. We really appreciate spending time with you. Thank you so much.